Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's Ryan, going to go over some bench press weak points and just some stuff I've been learning and stuff I've learned in my own bench. Some of this stuff you already heard or may know already based on some other videos you watch, but I thought I'd share my experience with you and just kind of how I break down the bench press, not just for myself but for clients that I train. I have some clients that are trying to improve their bench press, not powerlifters, just people that are trying to get in shape, regular people. That's my main specialty, is training regular folks. But I want to talk about kind of like what are the weak points. And the most common weak points in a lot of bench press, you should know, you've heard a lot, is triceps. Triceps do a lot of work in the bench press. And then, of course, there's the shoulders, and then there's the chest. Those are the other two other muscles, but let's just assume chest is going to always be part of the equation. In fact, it is a bench press. Why do people bench press in the first place? If you're not in powerlifting, you want a big chest. It's probably the most familiar exercise amongst most people, anyone you talk to. Now, talking about weak points, triceps and shoulders. Triceps, probably the most important thing that I've learned, two important exercises that have helped me with tricep weaknesses is skull crushers. Like not just skull crushers, but overhead, like doing a full overhead skull crusher. That way you get a good extension in the upper back or a thoracic extension. That way it forces you, especially if you're really stiff like me, helps you open up that thoracic spine and just really forces you into a stretch in the lats along head of the tricep, which kind of helps you carry over not just the tricep building strength, but also the kind of the arch feeling when you have a heavy skull crusher. That's kind of how my opinion on it, at least. The second thing is shoulder strength. Now, shoulder strength is kind of interesting because I came across this with a client. I've been training him, and he's been making steady progress. We've been doing linear progression, 5 pounds a week. He was at 215 for sets of 4 and 5, sometimes 6. Following week, we did 225 for sets of 3 and 5. And then we tried going up to 230, 235, and he kind of sputtered out. So the following week, again today, we did some benching, and 220 back to 225. We did a set of 3, set of 3, set of 3, set of 4, and a set of 3. And it's kind of interesting because he's sort of in this, he's stuck in this zone. He's definitely stronger, but the problem is at this weight, his technique is starting to fail. He's getting fatigued, he's getting tired. So after those 4 or 5 sets that we did, he was pretty tired. But so kind of what I wanted to kind of talk about was his shoulder strength, because it seemed to me that most of it where he was feeling is in his delts. He'd always point to here and he'd just feel very tight. And I always think that when people feel a lot in their shoulders, it just means they're overusing them. They're not able to stay tight enough. But he was very tight in the back. His feet position were great. His core was tight. And he had the right, pretty good bar path. His hand placement was good. And so I decided to do, based on, and again, a lot of the decisions I make based on his weaknesses is based off several sessions. So, a lot of people, some people have asked to make a video on talking about people's weak points, and it's not simple like that. You actually have to assess someone's movement, and you got to assess your own movement. If you're not working with a coach or a trainer one-on-one in person, working by yourself and learning about the body and kind of figuring out what you're missing at will help you understand. Like, it took me a while to figure out what my weak point is in the bench, and I used to think, I need to do floor presses, I need to do more tricep work, or maybe, and then later on I thought about, okay, maybe I need to do more wide grip work. And then what I later found out, it really was just a technique flaw. So that's my next thing I want to talk about, is technique. Having the right hand position, making sure that the bar is deep in your palm so that you have as neutral of a wrist you can, and then also having the correct bar path, because the bar path should be for raw lifters is that bar goes, essentially follows in this arc, so it goes like this. I'm exaggerating, of course. Now understand, this is not kind of what you're trying to do. You don't want to do this. You can't really do that because that's physically impossible with heavy weight, because you have gravity which is going this way, and as what you're doing is as you tuck your elbows in and squeeze your shoulder blades back and tuck your elbows back, the bar is going kind of below your nipple line, and as you press, you're bringing the bar up, but you're bringing the bar up like this because of flaring of the elbows, which engages more of the chest and shoulders. The sweet spot for the chest is, or for the pressing of the bench press, is right here. But if you can't go here too soon, because you're not going to be able to stay tight in the upper back, so it's kind of like there's a spot where you have to kind of go up. And I kind of learned this in my bench press, which I have a video I'm going to post talking about it with commentary about that, and I was able to do 270 for 3 sets of 3, pretty solid reps, pretty confident the following week I'll be able to 275 for a 3x3. So that's technique. So it's understanding like your hand position is right where it should be. It's optimal for distance, and that's something you're going to have to play with and determine for yourself where you feel the strongest. What I found personally in my own technique and benching over the years, at least these last 2 years of kind of taking it seriously with powerlifting, is that I would go a little wider and I would feel stronger, but I couldn't do as many reps. But when I got closer, at maybe 75%, well under 80%, I could do a ton of reps, more reps, because I think I get better stretch reflex in my triceps. I think also wider requires you to flare your elbows out more aggressively. And those are just kind of some thoughts. I'm kind of thinking out loud. Just kind of thought about that just now. Because if you're wider, you're going to flare your elbows out faster. That way you can bench. And these are like little things. I mean, some of you are much stronger than me, and you already know more about benching than I do. But it's kind of, I'm just articulating sort of my experience as I sort of march my way up to a confident 300, because I can't confidently press 300 on any given day. I can feel pretty strong and bench press probably 275 on any given day, but 300 I'm not quite there yet. Based on my numbers, it seems like I should, but probably not the psychological, because again, as Dave Tate has said, someone posted this, was it's either psychological, muscular, or technique. So one of those three things. Okay, so then, and the last thing I'll talk about when it comes to weak points is rhomboids and lats not being tight enough in the upper back. Also, not being tight enough in the lower body. I've been training some clients that are benching, who are pretty decent benchers. He's like 160 pounds and can bench press 225 for reps. You know, the problem is he fidgets his feet. You know, that tells me a lot of things, because if he were to plant his feet, squeeze his glutes, and kind of get that technique down, in a few sessions, in a few weeks, he's going to be able to do a lot more weight. So being able to be tight enough in the glutes, plant your feet down, so that way you can take advantage of that foot placement and hip placement, so that you can drive your upper back tighter into the bench. And that the next third thing would be foot placement, being able to take advantage of that upper back tightness. And some people say, oh, you need to use more of your lats, and that's sort of a feeling that's interesting, because that's, for me, lats and the bench have kind of come and go. There's a great video I mentioned before with Chris Duffin talking about the lats, and probably Chris Duffin is the one that I've seen, at least the people that I follow on YouTube, that has a kind of a push press bench press. And that's kind of what Dan Green has talked about, is that turning the push press into bench press. Take advantage of the pause when doing the pause bench. You bring the bar to your chest, you let it rest for a moment, let your triceps relax. Of course, you're still tight in the upper back, your chest is probably tight as well, but then you explode using the power of kind of that shoulder extension or hip thoracic extension, along with a little bit of hip drive, to allow the bar to kind of start off as you kind of engage your triceps. And that in itself is a pretty difficult technique. If you look around and practice it yourself, it's definitely something that's going to take it takes a while. I'm going to have to say that. You know, people who can bench press 405 for repetitions raw are pretty damn technically sound with their benching, because that just seems ridiculous. I've seen, Chris Duffin do it. Haven't seen a whole lot of videos with reps with Dan Green with bench press, but lots of like PRs and stuff. But those are my thoughts. I think that if you are having trouble, I think the first place to start is working on your technique, making sure that your technique is where it should be. And then, of course, the next thing would be being consistent with that technique that you're using, and then trying to figure out the flaws in that technique. And all I'm talking about, it's a little very vague, and if you haven't been benching or haven't been focused on the bench like I have been lately, it's sort of hard to understand. But if you've been benching for a while, you kind of already instinctively know what I'm talking about, because it's interesting, because as I get more into this powerlifting thing and learning how to get better at benching, getting better at squatting and deadlifting, it's like these little things that people have told you start to connect in your head, and they don't come right away. It's not like, oh wow, I remember, now I know what so-and-so was talking about. When Dan Green said at that seminar back in January that I went to, that you need to turn your bench press into a push press, I still didn't quite, I understood it conceptually, but it's not until 6 or 7 months later that I realized, now I know what he's talking about, especially after seeing Chris Duffin. Now, I saw Chris Duffin bench a bunch of times on YouTube, but now I understand what he's doing. And Chris Duffin's technique is a lot different than Dan Green's. But those are just some thoughts. Hope you enjoyed this video, got some good stuff from it, and share your thoughts on your weak points and kind of what has gotten you over the 300-pound mark on the bench. It doesn't even have to be in competition, because in my opinion, look, none of us, most of the people that watch videos like these are not going to be world-class powerlifters. You just love the sport. Maybe I could be wrong. I'm not here to judge what your goals are. I'm just saying, look, you just love it. You don't have to, like I used to play Magic the Gathering card game, and I had aspirations to be a pro, and that sounds kind of ridiculous, but that's one of the reasons why I played so hard. Now that I don't care anymore, I just play for fun. So it's sort of my same aspect, even though I take powerlifting seriously, but I take it in a recreational sense. I still got my job, my family, other priorities. And in some instances, like our hobbies that we really, really enjoy and are very obsessed about, somewhat takes up a little bit more time than it should. In this case, that's what powerlifting is doing to me. I tend to work out more than I should. Anyways, some thoughts. Hope you enjoyed the video. A little bit longer than I want it to be, but I'll talk to you guys in the next one.